And it's just about ready.
Okay.
And we're good to go.
Okay. All right, so welcome to the first DPAC meeting of the 21-22 school year. SD42 DPAC is the largest stakeholder at the SD42 education table, and we represent the parents of approximately 15,000 students. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and call to order, and we acknowledge and are grateful that the work of DPAC and our PACs take place on the traditional and unceded territories of the Hakenamin-speaking people of the Katzie First Nation and Kwantlen First Nation. We also recognize all our First Nations, Métis, Inuit students and their families in our school communities. We also want to acknowledge the generational harm and tragedies caused to our Indigenous communities throughout the history of residential schools. In this slide, we do have posted links for Hope for Wellness and other Indian residential school and reconciliation resources as well for those that would like to access those. Thank you. Okay, so we'd like to adopt the agenda at this point. It was circulated by email. And can I have someone move that we adopt the agenda? Garibaldi? Seconded?
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor of adopting the agenda as written will please vote in the poll.
I mean, is the poll open? Because I'm trying to do it and I can't do it. It doesn't have the list and I can't see it. Is it?
Chris has it. Agenda launch. There.
Thank you. I don't know.
I've had it, so. Okay. So motion is passed. Next. The approval of the June 17th, 2021 minutes. They were also circulated by email. Did anybody have any corrections to these minutes? Can I have somebody move that we adopt the minutes as written? Katie, seconded? Garibaldi. Are there any questions? All in favor of voting that we approve the minutes as written will vote in the poll. Okay, motion's carried. And next. My name is Tanya Sargent and I am the DPAC chair for the 2021 school year. And I am joined by, I'll go around the order in my screen here, Katie Jonas. She is our communications director. Leslie Higginson is a member at large. Shona Spence is a member at large. Who else do we have here? Chris Schultz-Lorenzen is our recording secretary. And then appearing tonight as our Yedidin DPAC rep is Amanda Woodhall. She is a member at large, as well as we have Paulina Lorraine. She is our treasurer, and Craig Towers is our DPAC rep to BCC PAC. We do have vice chair open if anybody is interested in joining us. Thank you. So first up, we have a report from our superintendent of schools, Harry Dillon. Harry?
Thank you, Tanya, and good evening, everyone. Tanya, let me know if my microphone is cutting out. I've been having a bit of an issue with it. I'd like to begin by acknowledging and thanking all of you as members of PACs and DPAC for serving and providing the service that you do. I know that from my own experience during my years as a school principal of 11 years, and certainly the years that both my children spent in our schools, PACs play a critical role, DPAC plays a critical role, and I just want to start by saying I sincerely appreciate the work that you do and look forward to working with DPAC over the course of this coming school year. I have only a few updates in my report because I realized this afternoon 3 of the items that I was intending to report on are actually included on the agenda. So you'll hear more from me later on under the headings of Truth and Reconciliation, the PAC Hot Lunches and Fundraisers, and under the agenda item of the Inclusive Education Committee. Just 2 items that I'll include in my opening remarks here is school startup. Just wanted to share with DPAC how very pleased I am with how school startup has gone this year. I've spoken with many elementary and secondary principals, and they've all shared that startup has been very positive. We've welcomed over 300 students back from remote learning. And overall, our enrollment this September amounts to about 300 more students than we had registered last September. So that trend of growth that we projected continues in our district and certainly adds to the challenge. But as I said, I'm so pleased with the school startup. It's gone very well. On that note, I spent some time at Thomas Haney Secondary this morning, and I came across a teacher that I've known for a number of years, and he couldn't stop commenting about how significant this return to in-person learning for our secondary students has been. They have a full complement of courses in person, and he just was raving about that. And then, of course, because he's a coach, with a big grin on his face, he said to me that, and school sports are back. So very nice to see that energy and the students in the school very orderly and complying with the guidelines that we have in place. In terms of the positive start, I have to gratefully acknowledge all the work of all staff in all roles. And that includes all of our custodial staff and our facility staff who take advantage of that period of time in the summer when we don't have students in schools and they get on with their work. And when we return to school, when students come back, the construction projects that need to be undertaken, the cleaning, the polishing that needs to occur happens. And again, special thanks to facilities and custodial staff. And I also want to acknowledge the leadership of CUPE and Mrta. We called the leadership to join us in mid-August, about August 17th, to sit down with us to review the updated guidelines and to work with us in implementing the plans that would be put in place for students to return to. And that was very productive, collaborative, and I want to give recognition to those folks as they did come in and get on with the work with us, and it's much appreciated. I wanted to comment a little bit because we have been getting some questions around the notification process, and I did join Fraser Valley superintendents this afternoon in a meeting with our medical health officer. And so I just wanted to share with you sort of a summary of how things play out. And really the process begins with Fraser Health contacting principals and asking for some very specific confidential information to determine close contacts. And when I refer to close contacts, I'm referring to both students and staff. The information that Fraser Health asks for this year, they ask for one additional piece of information. They ask for provincial health numbers because they do check vaccination status for students that are 12 and older and for staff. And they did earlier on in their guidelines and have affirmed this. Students and staff that are fully vaccinated are much less likely to be asked to isolate because they are much less likely to contract and transmit. So, and that has been our experience to date. If Fraser Health determines that any notifications are to be issued for self-monitoring or self-isolation, that information, again, confidentially, is communicated to principals and select district staff, and principals are given specific direction from Fraser Health in terms of which individual students and their parents and which individual staff are to be issued a self-isolation or self-monitoring notification. One of the things that has been put in place this year is that the guidelines are much more attentive to obligations around respecting privacy rights of students and staff. The question that does come up, and I've provided principals with guidance on this, when parents are asking about transparency and details, the BC-CDC guidelines document provides that guidance, and on the bottom of page 7, and I've provided this to principals, and I've used the same statement myself. The document from BC-CDC states that school administrators or staff should not provide notifications to staff or students, families about potential or confirmed communicable disease cases unless the school administrator is directed to do so by the school medical health officer. So our role, the role of principals, is to follow the direction of public health. The other document that serves as a reference, and Chris did provide it in the package for the agenda this evening, is the Ministry of Education's protocol document for administrators. And one of the statements in that document reads, school medical officers will play the lead role in determining if, when, and how to communicate out information regarding an exposure to the school community. So again, reinforcing our obligation as the school district, obligation for principals to follow the strict direction of public health. Now, the wrinkle to this is that earlier this week, I'm sure you're all aware that an announcement was made that some form of school-wide notifications would be reinstated. This afternoon, in meeting with our medical health officer, Dr. Zabar, she shared that written direction on this change is still pending. What we don't know is what this reinstated broader notification will look like. Will it parallel what we had in place last year, or will it be some other form of Fraser Health posting the information? That is yet to be determined, but certainly when that information is shared with school districts, we'll certainly be sharing that with staff and with parents. There are a couple of other things that we are awaiting clarification on, and the first one actually impacts PAC meetings as well. The question that we're awaiting confirmed written clarification on is whether proof of vaccination is to be checked for school-sanctioned gatherings and events on school premises. And that would include PAC meetings, a basketball game at a high school. And so what we've been told by Dr. Zabar is that those school sanctioned events on school premises, she's expecting will be exempt from the proof of vaccination order. But again, when we get that clarification, we'll certainly share it out. And we're also awaiting clarification on the application of the order for proof of vaccination when students that are 12 and older are on a school-sanctioned field trip, for example. If a class is on a field trip to the ACT in Maple Ridge, will proof of vaccination be required? And if that class goes for lunch at a restaurant, will proof of vaccination be required? Or are the students 12 and older exempt because it's a school-sanctioned field trip or event? So there's a few gray areas that we're waiting for clarification on. And as I said, as soon as we get that clarification, we'll certainly share it with you. And there's some other points that I think will come up when we get to the agenda later on when we're speaking about hot lunches and fundraisers. And I'll certainly provide further comments at that time. But other than that, that is my report at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry. Next, we have Elaine Yamamoto. She's with the SD42 School Board Trustees, and she is our vice chair. Is Elaine or Corleen?
I'm actually presenting tonight, Tanya.
Great, thank you, Corleen.
We rotate through, so it's always a surprise who you're going to
It
get
is, and then
tonight.
you're both here, and I'm like,
Actually, and I think Trustee McMurray has joined us this evening as well.
I did see that as well.
And the invite, of course, is open to all trustees, and we just rotate through who gets to present. But well, welcome back, everybody. September. I know I said this last night, but I've always loved September. I as a child loved going back to school. As a business owner years ago, I had a dance studio, and it was always an exciting week back to see the students. And as a parent, just the smiles on my son's face as he got to go back to school this year. And it really is so joyful to watch how excited they are to go back. And congrats again to the new executive. I think, Tanya, this is your first meeting in the role. So congratulations. I remember my first meeting stepping into chair. It's yeah. No stress at all. So of course it was our first board meeting of the year last night. I don't know how many of you have joined us. It was live streamed again. And just, you know, we're continuing to live stream for the next little while. We're really struggling with, if we come back into the boardroom in person, those of you who have been to our boardroom, you know that it's quite small. We wouldn't be able to have any public. We find that live streaming, we're actually getting quite a few public, you know, logging in and joining us from the comforts of their home and watching the board meeting, which is really exciting for us to see new people coming in and paying attention and interested in what's happening. But the other challenge we have is if all of us are in the room and then we try and live stream, it's really hard to see all the trustees in one frame because of the size of our boardroom. So we're doing our best to try and bridge the divide, to continue to engage the public and allow them to view what's going on and participate with questions and input, and also you know, try and be as safe as possible within our facilities. Just a quick overview of what happened last night. In correspondence, you will see there is a letter signed on behalf of the Board of Education and Mayor Dingwall and Mayor Mrta from the cities of Pitt Meadows and Maple Ridge. It's a letter asking Dr. Penny Ballum, who's in charge of the vaccination rollout in British Columbia, to increase access to vaccination clinics within our community. They've said all along, and we have heard that message, that the best layer of protection to protect people in our community, in particular those under 12 who can't be vaccinated, is for everybody else to be vaccinated in our community. And for 3 weeks, our community went without a single daily drop-in post-secondary or school vaccine clinic. So all of us in our different various avenues of advocacy a couple of weeks ago started requesting that there, and so thankfully we did see 2 vaccine clinics come in, one today from 9 to 4, and there's one on Monday from 9 to 4. We do realize that they're during the week, during the day. People have legally, employers are required to give you 3 hours of paid leave to get your vaccination. So if you're an adult, you can go and get your vaccination during the day. The only challenge we're still seeing, and we continue to talk about it, is a 9 to 4 vaccine clinic during the week makes it difficult for our students 12 and up to attend. By the time they're done school, it is difficult to attend. So fingers crossed, and we'll continue to work to make sure there's access and regular access to vaccine clinics in our community. The other thing that we passed last night, which is a new change for us, you will remember normally we present the superintendent presents the Supporting All Learners report, which is a really informative report that sort of brings together all the data from the past year and talks about some of those things we need to work on going forward. What are our strengths? What are some things we need to focus on to build some of our data that we're seeing? This year, there's been a change in the legislation. It's required that all boards of education have to pass something under the framework for enhanced student learning. So we're still calling ours the Supporting All Learners, the framework for enhanced student learning. And oh, thanks, I see someone's just posting it to everybody. And it's now required board approval. This isn't a significant shift for our board because we've already been doing this for 4 years. It is quite a shift for many other boards of education. The difference you'll see is it's a much smaller report. We are mandated to only 10 pages, although I think we're about 15 or 16 pages, and I was sort of sleuthing on all the other boards of education. Theirs is about the same length as well. But it is a great report if you want to take a look. It shows you the data, where we're doing in literacy, how we're doing in numeracy, how we're doing in social emotional learning within our district. And what else is new on there is what does our transition rate look like from post-secondary, from grade 12 to post-secondary. And I know you've heard us say it before, it is an area of focus and a variety of reasons why ours is a bit lower than the provincial average, even when we have grad rates that are significantly above the provincial average. We also passed an amended budget last night. So in the end of June and then into the beginning or the end of August, the provincial government announced some new funding for COVID related costs, not a significant amount. It's about $700,000 for our district. They also released about $70,000 more dollars for mental health. So if you go to our agenda, you'll see that breakdown as to how we've applied that funding for the next year. Two just changes in our committee appointments. Trustee Katie Sullivan is going to be on the Municipal Advisor Committee on Accessibility and Inclusion. And I've been appointed to the City of Maple Ridge's Active Transportation Committee. Our policy list is on there for the next year, our policy committee work. You will notice that we've talked a lot about anti-racism and what that looks like. It's not on the policy list because it hasn't been confirmed as a piece of policy yet, only because the work is being done to identify the data needed to look at what that policy would look like. We're waiting for one more significant piece, which is the Equity and Action Report by Dr. Amy Mrta, which has been worked on for about a year, and I know the superintendent has spoken about that before. One other thing I just want to highlight is the BC Government Committee on Finance and Governance. Every year they go out and seek submissions, input into what their budget should look like, that they table in February. This year, the deadline to apply is September 30th. Likely BCCPAC will do a presentation on behalf, like our School Trustees Association does an in-person presentation. As a district, it has always been part of our operations plan to make a submission on behalf of our district, so district-specific issues. And it's around the overall increase in education funding and not necessarily how the education funding is broken down through the pie. So it's always about why do we need more money in education? And so this year we passed a motion last night for me to draft a letter for that submission. And we're drafting that right now, so it will be public in our next board meeting. A couple of things that are upcoming that'll be really, I hope, of interest because we need your input is our draft facilities plan. I mentioned in June we released the draft. We're now going out for input on that first draft. And I believe, if I remember, the surveys, the first level of surveys are going out October. So likely through parent portals, through DPAC, shared on our website, however you can get it out. That input is so important on that draft facilities plan. If you want to review it now, it is on our website already. And then the only other thing is our next meeting is October 20th, and again, it's live stream. So if you could join in from the comfort of your home, we'd love to have you join us. Thanks, Tanya. I'm not sure if there's any questions or anything.
Did anybody have any questions? Nope. Thank you, Corleen.
Thank you.
And Chris has put up the links down below for both Fessel and looks like the strategic facilities plan update. So they are available in the chat. Thank you. Next up, we have MRTA, and who is here? I believe
I'm Trevor.
Trevor. Thank
Yes.
you.
Hi, thank you for having us and giving us some time to talk to you all. I'd like to just sort of reiterate what Harry said, that the startup has seemingly been fairly smooth, given the fact that when I left in June, I was promised a near normal return to school, which didn't quite happen as normally as I had hoped for. So yeah, we had to take a bit of a pivot, and we did come in, and much the same as I would say about much of the last year. I think that some of the strengths of what we've been able to bring is working with the district, Harry, and others at the board to come up with some good solutions where we worked together on those. So that I think has instilled a lot of confidence in the teachers. I would say that overall, the tone from the teachers, it's nice to report. I know that it impacts the well-being of the students, that the well-being of the teachers and how they feel coming into the classrooms is a positive experience. So I think whether it's because of the number of vaccinated teachers, then how that has alleviated a lot of the anxiety that they experienced last year, the tone has been much calmer. And I think that has to do with the fact that we did successfully navigate a pretty hard year last year. That was a very demanding year on a lot of the teachers and anxiety inducing, but knowing that for a large degree, we were able to come up with positive ways of working through that. And I do credit the fact that ourselves, QP, the district, Harry, and others were able to work together rather than work in a adversarial way, a collaborative way to find solutions. So I do appreciate all the partner groups being able to work DPAC too, that all of the feedback was able to make that positive. And I can't stress enough how much of an impact teachers feeling well has an impact on the well-being of the class environment. It is really important. So yeah, I'm happy to report we're still, of course, getting questions and concerns, but the overall tone has been quite positive. I do want to point out a couple of things that I think are positive. As Harry mentioned, the notification process has changed, and I found that a positive thing. That the doctor even admitted that a lot of that had to do with the pressure from parent groups and unions that influenced the decision to share more of that information than was originally planned for the beginning of the year, where it was a much more constricted degree of sharing. And so I think for a lot of people, the parents, the students, the teachers alike, the expanded sharing of notifications, however it looks, is going to put a lot of people's minds at rest, rather than working in partial understandings of what's actually happening. So that I think is a positive change. The one thing that I thought that parents may want to know is there was one thing that was brought to our attention that some of the parents didn't quite know is that the provincial guidelines don't say about it after a travel, after students travel outside of the country, that there's a 14-day where the students aren't allowed to come back into the school if they've traveled and they're under 12. I just thought the parents might want to know that it's a federal restriction. And so that's something that I thought may be worthwhile to share, because most of the other restrictions are pretty well known. But one that I will admit I didn't even know either, because it was a federal bit of information that people were surprised to find out that if they traveled outside of the country, that they're not in quarantine, but students under 12 aren't vaccinated, and so they have to stay away for 14 days, which, you know, we would hate to see that that's a surprise bit of information. So I'm looking forward to this year. Like I said, I think there's a lot of positive things. Even talking with other presidents from unions around the Lower Mainland, we have a lot of positive things that we get to report from happening in our district, right? Mrta filtration system seems to be a lot of chatter around the other locals that they're very concerned that a lot of the high quality filtration that's supposed to be happening in schools still hasn't happened in a lot of other districts. And it's always a bit of a sense of accomplishment and pride that, I mean, admittedly, that was a lot to do with decisions at the district, but we don't have to fight that fight. Those Mrta filters and filtration systems do keep students and teachers healthy. So I'm glad that those have been some of the positives. Looking forward to some of the things. I'm looking forward to our district's anti-racism and equity scan. So we'll have more reports about that. But I just like to report that there's a lot of positive things that I'm looking forward to this year, and it has been a fairly smooth transition. And I want to continue that collaborative approach to dealing with the problems we have, because I'm sure there will be some challenges that come up over the year, because I really was expecting to come back to a normal year. So we'll see what other wrenches get thrown in our works, but hopefully it's nice and smooth very, very soon. So thanks.
Thank you, Trevor. Any questions for Trevor? No, thank you. Oh, Harry.
Thanks, Trevor, for that reminder about the travel. We did provide our principals with links to the federal regulations, and what we didn't want to do is put notices in newsletters because, of course, the federal regulations can change. So we had already heard from some of our principals that they had been hearing from some parents about international travel. So the principals do have the link to the federal regulations, and that's what we'll stick with, is the link, because, of course, those are out of our control and can change at any time.
Perfect, thank you. And next, I believe we have Suzanne Bonney from QP Local 703, who represents all the non-teaching employees of SD42. Suzanne?
Thank you for the invitation, and good evening to everybody. I only have 3 items I'd like to share with you tonight. The first one being, we had our election September 11th for 2 key executive positions. Jason Franklin was reelected as president and Tracy Dowling as secretary treasurer. We were very pleased. The second item I have is, we have a new recycling program that's causing a huge workload increase to the custodial staff, that we encourage the students to do the pack in and pack out, because we've seen success with that where the schools have taken that on. And my last item, we respectfully ask that parents not ask QP staff if they're of their vaccination status, as we feel it's confidential information. So that's all I have for my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. In regards to the pack in, pack out, a handy hint for a lot of parents who may not have thought of it, I put a Ziploc bag in my son's lunch kit for him to stick his garbage in to bring home, so I don't have applesauce and pudding all over the inside of a lunch bag. So that's just something I do just to keep it kind of a bit cleaner, and then just dump it out, rinse it out, put it back. Okay, any other questions for Suzanne?
And if I may,
Mhm.
I've been talking to Alexandra a couple times over the summer, who was involved in some of the environmental stuff last year, and I know that she's away until Monday. But definitely for parents, she does have a 10-minute YouTube video on how the new stream works. It's very easy to follow along, and we're going to, once she comes back, we'll connect with her. She's got all the posters that show how it works, and we'll be passing that out to parents as well, so that they can see how that works in the classroom, and hopefully we'll be able to make some adjustments with packing lunches, going in and helping with that whole process.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris. Anything else to go with Suzanne's report? No. Thank you.
Thank you.
And do we have Grant Friend or Chad Rabel here? I haven't seen them come in. I don't believe so. No. Okay. So carrying on to Treasurer's report. So as of August 31st, 2021, we had $3,982.55 in our gaming account, $5,814.38 in our general account, for a total of $9,796.93. This is a reminder that your gaming grant summaries need to be in by the end of September if your year end is July 1st. Okay, there you go. So this is your reminder. If you have any questions about that, feel free to contact us. Okay, so now we're going on to new business. New this year to DPAC is an inclusive education committee. This will be headed by Shona Spence, and as well as Paulina Lorraine, and Shona will be giving us a brief update about that and what that may look like for this upcoming school year. Shona?
Great. So right now we're still in the midst of forming the group, but our focus at the moment is IEPs and working on consistency throughout the district. And if anybody has further questions or wants to be involved, they can message or email the DPAC and they'll forward it to me.
Thank you, Shona. Does anybody have any questions for Shona regarding this? Any discussion?
Yeah, if I could just, Tanya, share
Sure.
a little bit of what I shared earlier today, that over, I would say, at least a period of 15 years, our school district had a inclusive education committee, which is a board committee. And that committee dissolved in 2018, but had a very, up until that time, a very robust terms of reference. And I'll just read a couple of items from that term of reference list. To be an advisory venue for issues pertaining to special education, for parents, community partners to be knowledgeable about the district's services, to provide an avenue for input and suggestions to the Director of Learning Services. And the committee structure included parents, QP, MRTA, community liaisons with Community Living BC, Ridge Meadows Association for Community Living, Ridge Meadows Child Development Center, Asante Center, Nursing Support Services, Family Support Institute, Inclusion BC, and the president of DPAC also sat on the committee. Over time, and Trustee Carreras was a trustee representative at that time. over time, I would say the period of 2016 to 18, we started experiencing fewer and fewer parents and community representatives coming out to the meetings. And that eventually led to the dissolving of the committee. But as we looked at why the attendance had started to diminish, what we realized from speaking with parents that had previously attended regularly, as well as the representatives from the many community groups that I just mentioned, what was shared by those individuals was that while it was nice to have the meetings and talk about common themes, what was most effective for parents and for the representatives was to actually serve as advocates for the parents when meeting with school staff to develop their child's IEP and their programming. And so that is sort of what led to the dissolution, but we still have a board committee, an education advisory committee, and inclusive education is a part of the mandate for that board committee. And there is a terms of reference that includes community liaisons and representation, and that includes DPAC. So there are existing structures. And as I said earlier today in our meeting, I'll certainly link you up with Michael Scarcella, who is the Director of Learning Services, for some discussion, because he was in fact the chair of the Inclusive Education Committee prior to its dissolution, but he'll be your key contact really to work with in terms of some of the things that you're focusing on. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anything else regarding this? No? Okay. DPAC Safe and Active School Travel Committee. I believe Chris attended our last meeting on this. Chris, was it you?
Well, I've been involved with it a little bit over the last year or so, but I know PACs like Genedin, Blue Mountain, and other ones have done a lot more work than I have. I think the idea last year was that we would put a committee together, and that as a PAC could, or as a at the district level, could approach the community partners, the city, law enforcement, provincial, however it be, as a larger group instead of just single PACs going and talking to the city about signs. And there are methods. Our school area had a parent-driven or a community-driven initiative where they actually successfully got the city to install a small crosswalk not far from the school. So there are options, and it's really just about engaging with the community partners that look after or are able to help with those things such as enforcement, whether it be bylaws, transit supervisors, whatever the case is, depending on each school area, and try and tackle the individual issues as they come up as a school as a whole, or as a district as a whole, rather, recognizing that some schools like Blue Mountain, which is much more rural than some other schools, is going to have different issues than other ones. But certainly, I think working together as a committee here can put all those pieces together. So that's kind of the idea.
Great. So what we can do maybe is mail out on that. I know we've had some success with, I'll get to you in just a sec, really nice. I saw you raised your hand. When the Harry Hoagie neighborhood, we've had a lot of issues with the speed of traffic along 232nd, and we have students that cross 232nd midway on a crosswalk. And we've had some near misses, or if not actual kids that have been hit. So we ended up going to the city ourselves as a neighborhood, and we are getting actually a pedestrian controlled crosswalk now at 232nd and 122nd, trying to keep our students safe. So when we do speak up, it does work if we all come together. So Corleen?
Thank you. Yeah, transportation and safe transportation is definitely a priority for the district. And you know, as a parent myself, we have some pretty dangerous roads in Pitt Meadows, in particular Airport Way, where my child had to cross every day. Just a couple of things, Kristen. I'm wondering if the committee can keep me or us or in the loop. A couple of reasons. The individual PAC for individual schools have done an amazing job of working on those individual pieces. At the district level, there's a couple of things. One, district staff and city staff meet on a regular basis to talk about things like this as well as many other things. And there's quite a strong working relationship, staff to staff, between the district and the two cities. So something to keep in mind there, that there's a lot of great work that gets done at that table. Also, as the trustee representative on the City of Maple Ridge's Active Transportation Committee, again, that's sort of looking at this city at a strategic level, and there might be opportunities to help raise those issues at that table. I know during the summer I was speaking with a trustee colleague of mine in Langley who sits on their City Active Transportation Committee, and we had a long chat, and he says it's very, very successful and very active, and they're getting some really great work done. So I hope that table can be a place where we can also get some great work done in Maple Ridge. And the district in June did participate in, I think you guys are aware, I think I spoke about this in June, that the City of Maple Ridge is looking at their strategic active transportation plan for the city. And as a district, we did do a submission to it because we wanted to be a participant of it. And they released the first draft just at the end of August, and has a really great deal of information in there if any parents are interested in looking at some stats and different modes of transportation and what they heard back. I just thought it'd be of interest to you.
Thank you. We were fortunate, and it was actually just the neighborhood. It wasn't even packed for Harry Hoagie that did it, and it was just over the summer. We actually had a car go through a fence. We've had 3 cars parked, I think it was this summer, that were written off. It's been a disaster. So, and we were fortunate that Chelsea Meadis actually joined us and spoke on our behalf at the city. So yes, so it works, and we will definitely keep you in the loop on that one. If you're interested in joining our safe and active school travel committee, please let us know, and please go back to your schools and let them all know that both the inclusive education and the active school travel are being formed. Thanks.
And if I might do, I'll just add quickly that part of the active school travel is also encouraging as much as possible walking to school in the morning, getting pathways for bicycles. And I know that we've talked before for schools that need bike lock areas that we could talk to maintenance and that kind of thing to see how that goes. So it's just really about finding what all those other, not just the safe part, but yeah, walking school buses, obviously a little bit of an issue now where people are still kind of being distant, but down the road, how can communities organize walking school buses in the morning to school and after school and that kind of thing. So it's more than just safe travel. It's all of it combined.
Yeah. Drive to 5 is another one. Yeah. Okay. So if there's no other questions on those, we're going to move on. Next is presentation topics for upcoming meetings. Currently, we have discussed having a social media presentation because that is rapidly changing, I think, every couple weeks. And it's hard for parents to keep up. So last year, they had Greg Gerber actually presented at the Parent Education Weekend with BCC PAC. So he was fantastic. He's actually local here in Surrey. And so we're going to see about getting him in, as well as a presentation from BCC PAC. And John Gateman, who is the CEO of BCC PAC, would be doing a separate one completely on, he does about, his presentation's at least an hour, so it would not be part of a meeting. It would be a separate workshop type thing. And he actually is who represents parents for Section 11 appeals with the provinces or districts, or just in general. He is our go-to. So, but now I would like to solicit ideas from you all on anything that you would like to see us present on. We do also have a kindergarten registration orientation in the works. much like the grade 8 one, just because we know that that is a high anxiety time for a lot of parents. So that would be coming up probably towards end of November, beginning of December. Is there anything anybody else would like to see regarding this? So any other presentations that would be of general interest to parents within the school communities? Any feedback on those ideas? No? Okay. Carrying on. Adding the K1 to the grade 8 is great. It'll actually be separate. Aaron, from the grade 8, because K is registered before grade 8. So as far as I remember, I don't have kids that I registered for kindergarten here. I believe it's in December. But Harry has raised his hand. Harry?
So it's timely that, in fact, I spoke with David after we chatted earlier today, and we think November is probably a good time for David to do a presentation on kindergarten registration, because it basically starts right after Christmas break, and December often is a busy month. But after we chatted this afternoon, I thought that I would throw out a couple of other topics, maybe a topic on anti-racism and the work that's going on in our district. Our trustees recently had a wonderful presentation from our vice principal and helping teacher that assume responsibility for racial inclusivity and equity. We also have a great presentation. Again, our trustees were presented a presentation from our principal of Aboriginal education, and the focus was on Indigenous content in the curriculum. So fitting during these times when we are focusing attention on truth and reconciliation and the work that needs to be done there. So, and also early learning. We could put together a presentation on early learning, including strong starts, and our safe and caring schools. What is that department about, and what services do they provide? So there's lots of options there. I put those out there for you to consider, and we're certainly happy to chat about what month would be best for any of those or any others that you may think of.
I think, as we discussed earlier, I think it's great that if we do have these different groups within the school, like Safer Schools Together and a presentation, Strong Start, and things like that, the early learning portions, if we could get, as we were saying, you suggested maybe like just 10-15 minutes at the beginning of a meeting on what these are about and what they encompass and who's involved and how to get involved and things like that. Kristen, Safer Schools Together is actually not part of early learning. Early learning would be like Strong Start. Safer Schools Together would be more of the inclusiveness, anti-bullying strategy, but not a race. And there's a bunch of them. So it would be something completely different. And this is why we would do these, is so parents are being educated on these different initiatives through our district, and some of them are provincial and some of them are district specific. So I think this would be a really good opportunity this year if we could get one going at each meeting. Is there any other feedback? No. Okay. Chris is going to now speak about the PAC 101, 201. We don't know what we don't know. Workshop that he is planning. Chris.
So we've had lots of questions about PACs. We've sort of put it together. It's a PAC 101, 201 kind of thing. It's basically taking a bunch of sources, including BCC PAC, other sources of all kinds of things that have sort of basic information that may sort of help PACs. And it's really about touching on some of these, going into a little bit more detail about some of them. It's a 2 hours, so whatever we can fit into the 2 hours. But it's these kinds of things generally. If there are other things that you'd like to see, the financial practices would be an entirely different one, but certainly we're going to touch on some key points with that. And this is not to determine whether you as a PAC are doing something good or bad, or it's about sharing our experiences. And it's about, it's what sort of some common practices are. If you're not doing them, it's not a judgment on them. If you're already doing them, it's not a judgment on that. It is really just to share that information or reinforce what you're already doing. So it was originally going to be on October whatever the week, 17th, 13th, whatever the Saturday was before. I think it went out the 16th. Now I know it's the 16th. So originally the email went out with October the 16th being the date. October the 15th is my wife's 50th birthday and I want to live. So we pushed it back another week. So it is now going to be on October 23rd at 10 a.m. till noon. So yeah, so sorry if that inconvenienced anybody who planned for it to be on the 16th, but I wouldn't be alive to host it. So it's going to be on the 23rd instead. So just email us. We're going to put out some more information again with some more details on what it's going to look like in the next week or so as we're sort of finishing it up. And then we'll let everybody know and send out the Zoom link and all that kind of stuff. It is open to any PAC executives, any DPAC reps, and any interested parent that would like to share more about some of these ideas and things that we can do better.
Tanya, you're muted.
Anyone have any questions for him? Nope. PAC fundraise. Oh, do they need to register ahead? The link will be sent out. And I don't believe we're doing. Are you doing registration, Chris?
I don't think I'm going to do a registration. Usually, if I think we're going to hit 75 or 80, we'll need to do a registration. But I seriously doubt that's going to happen. So no, we'll just send out the Zoom link to the PACs and the DPAC reps. And if definitely put it out to your parents if there's anybody interested. If you get one or two parents, just pass on the link to them. If you have a number of parents, please let us know just so we can sort of keep track of the numbers. But there's no registration. But a great question.
Great, thank you. Okay, anything else? Okay. Harry will now be speaking with us regarding PAC fundraising and school access, which is a hot topic right now. Harry.
Thank you. That's what I need is more hot topics, but an important one. As I said in my opening comments, to recognize the work that PACs do and the benefits for our students and staff, and hot lunch is a big deal. It was for my kids, and I saw it as a school principal as well, school-wide. Just to give you some background to this, Tanya sent me a question a few weeks ago, and it was just after school startup, and it was really around can we start up hot lunches and fundraisers, and at that time I suggested that we wait a few weeks just for everyone to settle into the new routines of the new guidelines, and then earlier this week. I guess Tanya is hearing from PAC chairs looking for direction, and Tanya sent me another email asking if there was an update. And one of the questions that Tanya posed was, or comments in her email, was that the PAC, the DPAC, was looking to have some uniformity across the district. And so I responded to Tanya and said that I'd be meeting with elementary principals, and I had that meeting this morning with them. And I'm just going to share with you some of the key points that I raised and that formed a part of the discussion with principals. The first and foremost point is that all health and safety guidelines must be adhered to. And that includes for all visitors, whether it's PAC volunteers and hot lunch, there needs to be confidence in the capacity to ensure that anyone coming into the building has done their health check, that you've documented their names, their contact information, the locations that they were in during their visit at the school, and the time that they left. So there is a capacity issue there. And you may recall in my message to parents just before school startup around visitors that, while the current guidelines expand the openness, so to speak, of our schools, we still have to ensure that we're meeting the guidelines. So we encourage parents to make appointments. As you all know, serving as volunteers in schools and as parents, schools are busy places, and we simply don't have staff to dedicate time to documenting anyone coming and going. And we certainly have lots of what we call itinerant staff in the school district. And every time, for example, an ELL teacher goes from one school to another, we need to document that they were in the school, where they went, who they worked with. And so that forms a part of that documentation that I referred to in the event a principal gets a call from Fraser Health about a confirmed case. That information is critical when that contact tracing is initiated. So part of the guideline, acknowledgement that the guidelines must be adhered to, and that we have to think about capacity in terms of making sure that we're documenting things. Another point that came up during the discussion was that facilities differ. Some of our schools are 2 levels. Some schools have individual exit doors to the exterior. Many of our schools don't, but some do. Some, for example, have a multi-purpose room with a kitchen where parents can organize hot lunches. The other point that was made and acknowledged was that enrollment differs. And the best example that I can provide is Webster's Corners. With just over 100 students under the guidelines, they can have a full school assembly. Their staff meetings are in person. And but that can't occur at many of our other schools because of the size of the enrollment at the school. So situations differ by facility design and by enrollment from school to school. The next point is one that I raised with Tanya and really resonated with the principals, was around the consideration that needs to be given to student, parent, and staff readiness and comfort to be moving to this hot lunch provision, or to have more individuals that aren't staff members coming into the school. And that's difficult to gauge. And the sense that I got from principals was that that comfort level does differ a little bit from school to school. And sometimes the size of the school, size of the community does come into play. So that was something that really was top of mind for all the principals, was that sense of readiness. And I think that's a question that PAC chairs and PAC executive also need to reflect upon. Are the parents ready for this? Is it going to create anxiety versus an appreciation for the service that is intended? And then the other piece that came up also was the reality of uncertainty. We don't know what is happening or what the guidelines will be from week to week. And we've certainly experienced that with the change in the notification process. And to the same point, I've instructed principals to not put deposits down on, for example, year-end trips, camp trips, or anything like that, because we just don't know what things will look like down the road, let alone 2 weeks from now. So those were all of the things that we discussed as a group of elementary principals. And what principals have asked is that individual PAC chairs reach out to them for discussion, and they'd like to reflect upon all these points that I just raised with you in a discussion with the PAC, and then make some decisions around what and when, if anything, at this time. They're not asking for an all or none approach because they said the contexts across the district, the size of the school, the comfort level, the readiness does differ. And so what they'd like to do is actually do as we've done with field trips and other things, is work within the guidelines, give consideration to that comfort, and make decisions at the local level. Final point, having said all that, I do respect the fact that DPAC does have the ability to provide advice to PAC chairs. And I think the discussion that we had this morning that I had with the executive, you may in fact have some advice, but that is what I can report back from my discussion with the principals. And I would ask that PAC chairs actually speak directly with the principals on these matters. And I'm open to questions or comments at this time.
Did anybody have any questions regarding this?
I don't have any questions, but I have a few comments, if that's okay.
Okay.
I just want to reiterate not only what Harry said, but this isn't, I've read the guidelines, the K-12 and the for administrators and the rest of it. And this isn't something that Harry feels that we should be, this is in the guidelines. You have to make sure, you have to check with your community to see what their sense is, how comfortable they are. That's part of it. And also part of it is that every visitor to the school has to be made aware, has to be aware of what all the protocols are. And I can tell you, having read the document several times, I don't know that I could successfully answer that question, that I know what the protocols are. So if you can't answer that question, then you really aren't allowed to be in the school. So it's kind of one of those things where, yes, it's allowed, but it is virtually impossible for many schools to actually do it. And you look at what happened in Chilliwack today. I certainly hope they didn't have any hot lunches planned for next week, because that's going to be a problem for them. And that's something that we're just hoping at least for the short term, as we kind of move a little bit more cautiously, that I wouldn't want to see any of our PACs in that position where they have $200, $300, $400, $500 worth of food that is, there's going to be nobody at the school to take it and deliver it. So I don't want to see any PAC in that position. So I understand we all want to get back to it, but there are the guidelines, or the K-12 guidelines. There's the BCCDC guidelines. There are instructions that administrators have to follow, and all of those things put together. Certainly from my personal perspective is that yes, the answer is yes, you can, but at the end of the day, for right now, I would strongly encourage no, just because there's so much involved to do it, unless you can find a way to do it. But yeah, definitely checking with your parent community to see that they're comfortable with it. You don't want to cause trust issues with your parent community where they're concerned about who are the volunteers delivering the lunches. Are they vaccinated? Are they not vaccinated? Some parents may not care. Some parents may very strongly care. So those are things you want to check into before you have those volunteers in the school, aside from all the guidelines that are onerous for many schools to be able to actually meet.
Chris, if I could just add to those comments, that uncertainty and being careful you don't make the wrong assumption. And I've given that same advice on field trips, even if it's a local field trip. A teacher and a principal, I don't think, can necessarily assume, if they send that permission form home, that every parent is going to say, yes, I'm comfortable with that, because just because of the context that we're in. So it does make it a little bit more challenging, but gauging that comfort level and getting a confident sense of that, I think, will be critically important.
One thing I wanted to add is, I know it's frustrating for our PACs to see in the two PAC groups on Facebook, the PACs Helping PAC and PAC Connection, we see other districts that are doing this, and that is so frustrating. And I fully understand that, but we don't know how their schools are set up, whether or not they're all outdoor access classrooms, what their populations are like. I know District 36, which is Surrey, and 35 as well, are both allowing them in their district right now, and 35 is Langley. And I'm going to be honest, you look at our exposure notice difference for the two for us and across the river, and it's a crazy difference. So I think, I don't know, I would like to be the one on the more cautious side and kind of keep it more under control and not have the ability to expose ourselves as a district to that potential exposure. Nobody wants to hold the mega spreader event. So yeah. Okay. So for now, speak with your administrators, but yeah, like Harry said. Okay. Anything else to do with that? No. Truth and Reconciliation Week. Harry.
Thank you. And I think our board chairperson will also want to comment on this. Some of you may have actually already received a parent portal notice, which is a joint communication from our board chairperson, Carreras, and myself. And we sent a message out today speaking to families and staff about the importance of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, and to really support and promote the learning and acknowledgement and the reflection that we should be all undertaking at this time. And we have promoted our teachers, principals, our Aboriginal Education Department across the district. We are promoting Truth and Reconciliation Week for all of next week. And as you know, our students are only in session Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And we are encouraging all students and staff to wear orange that entire week. We will be lowering flags at all district facilities to half-mast Monday to Friday, again, to honor and to show our respect as part of Truth and Reconciliation Week and our National Day for Reconciliation. In the notice, you'll see that we are acknowledging the work and support of our Aboriginal Education Department with providing the resources and activities to teachers to use with their students leading up to the National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. So we're very pleased and take pride in our commitments and the work that we're doing with Truth and Reconciliation. And I look forward to hearing back from the schools and seeing some of the pictures that I'm sure we'll see of the activities that were undertaken next week. But Corleen, I don't know if you want to add comments to that. I'll turn it over to you.
Just a small piece, Harry, because I think you did such a great job of sort of the thoughts of the district and the priority. Truth and Reconciliation and supporting Indigenous learners and families and Indigenous peoples in our communities is a priority and an important piece to the Board of Education and for our operations report, which is sort of our strategic plan. It's been woven throughout all of our different priorities and strategic goals for the last few years, and you know, it has been tough. You know, the last few months, I can't even imagine how devastating it was for Indigenous peoples and the discovery of the graves. This is something that they have been telling us for years is there and happening, and I think that the knowledge be more public in June, and people finally listening and hearing and realizing. I couldn't tell you how many people I know that like Truth and Reconciliation, Orange Shirt Day is been in our schools for many years now, and so students are well aware, and they're hearing the true history in schools, but the community is just starting to pay attention and hear. And so I'm really grateful that this holiday is being, not a holiday, this day of recognition is being recognized in our nation and in our province, and that our district is taking an entire week to really focus and talk to students and support students on truth and reconciliation. And it doesn't end at this week. It goes forward every single day. So there are lots of resources that have been shared on our sites by our Aboriginal Education Department, and I encourage all of you to look at the resources that are on the website, read the books that are there, the learning resources, talk to your children, talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family members who maybe didn't hear about the truth when they were in school. I remember last year in June when the orange shirts were out and people didn't know about Orange Shirt Day. This is the first they'd ever heard of it. So people are open to learning right now, and so I just encourage you to take that opportunity and really learn yourself and to support your children, and know that the board, that this continues to be a priority for our board. We spoke about earlier about the equity and action report that's coming to us, and I think that's really going to guide us in some next action in the direction for this district in the coming year once we see that report. So, thank you.
Thank you, Corleen. Okay, anyone have any comments or questions about Truth and Reconciliation Week? No? Okay, so coming up, there are provincial changes to the distributed learning and online learning service and delivery methods coming up. And one of the province is actually calling for focus groups, and BC CPAC is arranging for them and soliciting for anybody who may want to go and participate in these. Thank you, Chris. And so we're looking for somebody to we're looking actually for somebody to be on the more neurotypical side, and then someone on the special needs side of things, because they are very different, and there are different reasons why you choose for these methods of education for your kids. The one thing is if your child is currently a student in SD42, we actually do not have a true DL program within the district. Last year's remote schooling does not count, neither does Home Hospital Bound, and Odyssey is actually not considered a true DL as well by their definitions. So if anybody's interested in this or has previous experience in this, that would be fantastic if you would like to go on either side. So if you could just let us know, and we will get back to you, and I can forward you on to BC CPAC. That would be great, as well as bring that to your PACs and your parent communities. We will try and get an email out on that one as well. Okay, does anybody have any questions on that? No? Okay. Anybody? No? PAC Voice. Is there anything anybody wants to bring forward at this time? No? Okay. All right. Can I have somebody move we adjourn the meeting at anybody? Okay. And seconded? You could raise your hand. Great. And all in favor of adjourning the meeting? Trish? Okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you. See you in a month.
There we go. I don't know what happened with the polls because Chris and I tested it out at the beginning and I could see them all in the drop down menu. And then to launch it, I can launch the first one and nothing else. Should we stop the recording?
Yeah, just thank you. Just give me 1 sec.
Yeah. And